After a boy reeled an old purse out of the water, his aunt looked inside and took decisive action. It was an exciting day for a sixth grader from South Carolina. Brody Brooks was on a fishing trip with the promise of adventure, and he was packing a new rod. All he wanted to do was catch a big fish. Yet while things didn't quite work out as he planned, Brody certainly did bring a whopper ashore that day. And the mysterious catch set the scene for a stunning story.
Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos.
When the young boy felt his line dip into the water, he was certain he'd got a big catch on his line. "I felt that I really had a fish," Brody told Decisive.com. "But then when I got it up to the surface, I was like, I ain't got no fish." To be sure, 11-year-old Brody will vividly remember the fight for his massive catch on July 3, 2017 for a long time. And all because of what was actually hanging on the end of the boy's rod when he managed to pull his line in. The boy and the small fishing party he had joined that day at Lake Hartwell in Anderson County, SC, had all been excited when Brody had snagged something big. But that excitement turned to astonishment, because Brody had caught hold of something that was not a fish at all. The boy's prize was a waterlogged and leathery old bag. When the party set out on the fishing trip to the local reservoir that morning, young Brody had one thing on his mind: his box-fresh, ugly stick fishing rod. He was eager to try out his new piece of kit, but also anxious that no harm should come to it. But some kind of damage seemed increasingly likely when the boy snagged what he thought was a big one. In the week following the fishing expedition, Brody spoke to ABC News about the catch of the day. "I felt like it was a big fish because it was bobbing my rod up and down," he said, adding, "I'd just gotten an ugly stick, so I was scared I was going to break my rod. I was scared the line was going to snap." Despite his fears, the determined young angler kept up the struggle. He alerted the rest of his fishing buddies to the big excitement. This was when Ben Myers, a distant relative of Brody, stepped up to help his young relative to bring in the extra heavy haul. However, once Brody pulled it from the water, he realized that what he had struggled with wasn't a fish at all. Understandably, the boy's first reaction was to feel a little let down after all that effort. But Ben was quick to recognize the muddy item for what it was. With more experience of fishing, the older angler knew what a rarity the preteen had reeled in. Also speaking to ABC, Ben said, "I told him, you ain't got no fish, you got a treasure." Ben soon helped Brody to change his disappointed tune. "We might catch a can here or something like that. But as far as a woman's purse, that's a first for me." Ben continued to the news cameras. "I've been fishing on this lake all my life, and that's the first time I saw something be caught like this." Fortunately, the purse had been zipped when it had fallen into the water. That meant the bag's contents weren't completely destroyed. This despite being submerged under what Ben estimated to be almost 30 feet of water in that part of Lake Hartwell. So as Brody and Ben opened the bag up, the inquisitive pair found out a little bit more about the purse's owner. The purse contained plenty of evidence about the owner. Brody and Ben discovered 2 tubes of lipstick and cards so old that some of the stores they belonged to are now long out of business. At the bottom of the bag, they even found a teasing comb, presumably to get the owner's hair to the optimum height. Most important of all, however, was the fact that whoever owned the purse also carried her photographs in there. These indicated that the bag had been lost in a time before smartphones were able to hold a person's images. And this led to the boys unlocking the key to the mystery. Brody and Ben carefully sifted through the sodden photographs. And despite the fact that the images were faded, Ben's eye was caught by one picture in particular. To his amazement, he realized that he knew the woman in the photo. He later told ABC News, "She's a friend of the family. I went to school with her nephew, but I hadn't seen her in 10 years." The angler grabbed his phone and got in touch with the woman's nephew. He in turn relayed the news of the bag's remarkable recovery to his aunt, April Bolt. Later, she spoke to ABC about her astonishment, saying, "I couldn't believe it. I was lost for words. You never think you'd see it again." It turned out that April had lost her purse during a cookout at a marina close to Lake Hartwell, that had taken place in 1992. In other words, an unbelievable 25 years had passed since the bag had disappeared. But April believed way back then, and still maintains to this day, that her bag had vanished in suspicious circumstances. April explained her theory to ABC. Speaking about events in 1992, she said, "We were on the boat and my parents had a condo there, and we were grilling burgers and we parked the boat in the slip. There were two guys there fishing and, I hate to accuse anybody, but when we got back I was like, my pocketbook is gone." April well remembered how emotional the loss had made her. "I was crying," she recalled. "It wasn't a whole lot of cash, maybe like $60. But a woman fits her whole life in her purse. It was devastating." April was also upset that her cosmetics had disappeared. "My favorite lipstick was in there and the color was discontinued," she ruefully chuckled. And while April was undoubtedly delighted to see her favorite lipstick again, it was something else she carried in her bag that meant the most. Among the photos preserved inside the purse that Ben had used to identify April were some precious pictures of her son. April explained, "My son is 26 now, but he was 15 months then, and I had all his photos that were professionally taken in my wallet. They have water damage, but you can make him out." Reflecting back on Brody's amazing big catch, neither Ben nor April could believe what had happened. "It was pretty wild," Ben told ABC News. "You fish up a purse for one. Then you actually know whose it was." April said that the bag's recovery from a depth of almost 30 feet and a quarter of a century gone meant the world to her. However, following the discovery, April is trying to figure out why the universe wanted her to have her bag back. "Everyone keeps telling me, there's got to be a meaning to why you're finding this so many years later," she said. And if she had known where to look, April could have spoken to a man named Paul Burgoyne about this very thing. Paul had been through the exact same thing and found a reason in the mysterious ways of the universe. Please feel free to share with your friends.